Let me begin with the big question this week. Has the world gone deaf and blind to the plight of the Palestinians being bombarded into virtual extinction in the Gaza Strip? It's been described by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as a graveyard. Will it be the graveyard of the US empire as it turns a blind eye to the heartbreak and death and destruction in Gaza? And why is Israel pushing Palestinians to the precipice? Some 18,400 Palestinians have died since Israel's punishing retaliatory Gaza strike. Some 1.8 million of Gaza's 2.5 million residents have been displaced from their homes. Only 14 of 36 hospitals are functioning. There's no food, there's no electricity, there's no water, no medicines. The West's silence on human rights violations, including the bombing of places of worship in Gaza, is deafening. Israel has rebuffed all calls for a truce, for a deal with Hamas. The annihilation of Hamas and Palestinians who live in Gaza now tops the agenda, alongside the hunt for the 130-odd Israelis still being held hostage and finding Hamas leaders, they say, who are in hiding. Hamas, too, has a new red line. It says they were once where they were willing to swap hostages for the 7,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails. They now say not will be allowed to leave Gaza alive. So the question that we must ask today is, what is Hamas's endgame? What is Israel's endgame? Talking to us today is Palestine's ambassador to India, who served in our country for almost 10 years. Welcome, Ambassador Adnan Abu Al-Hajja, who represents the Palestine Authority.
Thank you very much
for having
me with you. Thank you.
And also welcome Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, who served as ambassador to Saudi Arabia twice, to the UAE, to Yemen, and Oman. Welcome, Ambassador Ahmed.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador Al-Hajja, you're a very vocal proponent of India's mediation in the Gaza crisis, but India really is a bit player. So we'll talk about that later. I think far more important is the role played by Israel's main backer, Washington. It keeps Israel supplied with state-of-the-art weaponry, and as in the 1967 war, continues to ensure that no Arab country can fight and win a war with Israel. Now, Washington has vetoed the United Nations Security Council resolution that called for a ceasefire in Gaza. The UK abstained. Israel has now been given the green signal to keep up its Gaza offensive. But very interestingly, overnight, we hear Biden has told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel is losing international support because of its indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. So is the US, having second thoughts or just pandering to the Jewish lobby? What should we see, Ambassador Al-Hajja, about the US? First the veto, now this rap on Benjamin Netanyahu's knuckles.
First of all, thank you very much for having me with you, and nice to see our ambassador, Mr. Talmiz Ahmed. Let me say from the beginning that the United States from the beginning are part of this war, and they do everything not to take any resolution at the Security Council for ceasefire. Even at the beginning, they were against humanitarian truce. Now, we were expecting at least after 2 months of bombing, after two-thirds of the building of Gaza has been destroyed, after 18,000 has been killed, and about more than 7,000 still under the rubbles, more than 49,000 have been injured, 1.9 has been displaced, at least to abstain at the Security Council. But I could say that the United States, with 10,000 of military weapon has been sent in 200 planes to Israel, are sharing in this war. Also, UK, United Kingdom also, with that drone over Gaza, is also participating in this war. But let me say that first casualty of the Israelis, of those hostages, has been killed. I think it has been discovered by the British, right? Hope the Israelis don't try to do it again, because we are doing, or Hamas are doing everything to keep the hostages alive. But with that operations, you don't know who will be killed and who is not. Right?
That's right.
The Israelis yesterday announced that 19 of those hostages has been killed.
19? I thought
Yes.
there were just 2.
No, the Israelis talk about 19. One of them, they give his name, he's from Tanzania.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. So Britain, as I said, has participated in any way in this war, and the United States. Now, what we have heard from Mr. Biden yesterday, hope he will continue with that, because Israel really lose. I mean, you can remember what was the attitudes at the 7th of October.
Yes.
And they have started losing the support from the world after 1 week of their bombing, because most of the world said that this is not the right to defend themselves. Right. So hope Israel will continue, United States will continue, Mr. Biden himself, especially he has sent his National Security Advisor, Mr. Sullivan, within 2-3 days, he will be in Israel, right? To give the right message to stop this war and these crimes against the civilian, especially the Israelis have not seen us. Only one fighter they killed from Hamas, while we have seen from Hamas many military operations against their tanks, their soldiers, right? Hope this war will stop as soon as possible, and the United States is the main country who could make the real pressure at Israelis to stop their crimes.
So if I can just turn to you, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, do you believe that the Palestinians are getting worldwide Israel's accusation that all criticism stems from this anti-Semitism? Because so far, the US has been unable to pressure Israel because it's so worried about the Jewish lobby. And the Israelis, can the Israelis be persuaded with this comment that Biden has made now to scale down the attacks on the Palestinians?
There are two separate queries that you have made. There are two separate queries that you have made. One relates to the domestic situation in the United States relating to so-called anti-Semitism, and the other whether there will be any impact of President Biden's statements as far as Netanyahu is concerned. With regard to the first part, yes, there is a very strong domestic lobby in support of Israel, but it is not the same as it used to be before. It is now much weaker, much more divided. As you have seen today, most American campuses and large sections of American intelligentsia are today very supportive of the Palestinian cause, which is now, this is why you find such strident remarks coming from the other side relating to anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is the catch-all phrase that the Israelis have been using for decades, that any criticism of Israel, of Israeli policies, is deemed to be anti-Semitism. And as you know, it is a very powerful weapon, because people's careers can be ruined if they are labeled by the term anti-Semitism. I think it is an eroding concept, and over a period of time, less value will be attached to it. As of now, yes, particularly campus presidents who have been upholding freedom of speech and expression, are today under pressure by this kind of extreme right-wing lobby. With regard to what is happening within Israel, let me make it very clear. The American president's statements are half-hearted, uttered with very little conviction, and no expectation that there will be a reciprocal reaction as far as Israel is concerned. The Israeli president is sitting on a very firm wicket. He believes that he is above any blandishments that the Americans might make. You will recall, astonishingly, the American president has said indiscriminate bombing.
He used that word, yes.
Indiscriminate bombing is a criminal act.
Absolutely.
And yet Netanyahu is not bothered by any of this. My conviction is, and my belief is, Netanyahu cannot afford a cessation of hostilities. The minute there is a ceasefire or a truce, the guns will come out for him because of the incompetent way he has led the government of Israel and caused so much damage to his people. It is not just a political failure or an intelligence failure. There is a total failure of the Israeli government because of its right-wing character. They have deliberately provoked violence against the Palestinian community in the West Bank, killed several of them. In fact, a few hundred have been killed since the conflict started in Gaza. But the more serious thing, the deliberate and mischievous desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in order to provoke a violence from the Palestinian side. These are both despicable acts conducted with the full support and knowledge of the ministers who are part of Netanyahu's government.
That's right. The two ministers who are part of the
very low level of Israeli politics, and I'm not sure that the prime minister is going to be reasonable, accommodative, moderate, or listen to anybody whatsoever.
If I can just come back to you, Ambassador Al-Haija, the Biden administration, do you believe it shares Netanyahu's government's goal, which is to evict all Palestinians from Gaza? You know, to stop, they say it is to stop Hamas from mounting attacks. And you yourself have said that Palestinian refugees, but Israel's plan, has it always been to push Palestinians out of Gaza? Because it's asked Palestinians to move to safe zones in the south. Now they're bombing the south. They're bombing not just Gaza City, they're bombing Khan Yunis. Are they pushing them, as everyone believes, into the Sinai Peninsula to make them stateless refugees? Ambassador Al-Haija?
I think, let me talk about this Israeli plan. It's not new to evacuate all the people of Gaza to Sinai. And it has been discussed by Mr. Netanyahu and former president of Egypt, Mr. Hosni Mubarak. There is a video, I might send it to you, that Netanyahu discussed that with Mr. Hosni Mubarak. And Mr. Hosni Mubarak, as he mentioned, Mr. Hosni Mubarak, that he has been with a map to Sinai. He said, in this area, and he make a circle in Sinai, we built 10 cities of tents for them. And later, we are ready to collect money and make infrastructure and build cities for them. Mr. Hosni Mubarak said, forget. But Mr. Netanyahu insists to discuss that. Then Mr. Hosni Mubarak, this is in the video, said, do you want war to come back again between me and you? Forget. It's in this way what Mr. Hosni Mubarak. So it's not new. If the Egyptian open the borders, I'm sure that the Israelis will push the 2 million of our people to Egypt and then occupy Philadelphia part of which is the borders, right? And it will be the new catastrophe of the Palestinian people.
The new Nakba.
Yeah, new Nakba to the Palestinian people. And not only that, also what they are doing in West Bank, especially since this extreme government has been formed in Israel. what they are doing in West Bank, it's part of the 7th of October, right?
I see.
Because before the 7th of October in West Bank, they have killed 260 people till 7th of October. Since 7th of October till now, they killed 288 people, right? By only within this month, they have assassinated and killed 288 people in West Bank, right? What they are doing today for about 24 hours, they are in Jenin camp. They are destroying the infrastructure of the streets by their D10 bulldozer, right? And
Oh my
killing
gosh.
people. The number who has been detained during the from the 7th of October is more than 3,700 people. Last night from Jenin, yes. So when you talk about the number of people in jail from Gaza and from West Bank, now it's about 10,000, because there is more than 3,800 from West Bank, and yet we don't know exactly the number they have kidnapped from Gaza.
Jenin.
And
No.
yeah, no, from Gaza, you have seen those people
I saw those
approximately nude, right?
Yes.
They put them, and when you now in our country, it's very cold now, by the way, right? And you can feel those displaced people in that tent where they don't have a fuel even to warm themselves. They don't have a cloth to put on because their homes has been demolished and their cloth, and so it was there, right? So the people are living in both in very difficult. The Israelis, if they could, they will evacuate, they will push all our people in Gaza. And what we have heard from King Abdullah of Jordan, that any refugee to Jordan or to Egypt is a red line, which it means he has information.
I read that.
Yeah, he has information that the Israelis are planning also to push people of West Bank to Jordan, right? And that will it won't make any stability in the area if it has happened. Right.
So basically what they want to do is they want to empty West Bank and the Gaza Strip of Palestinians. But
yes,
isn't it also true, Ambassador Al-Hajja, that the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the Egyptian president, he's been approached by the US and Israel to accept this whole business of the Sinai Peninsula becoming a refuge for the Palestinians, offering billions of dollars to Cairo. They're offering a debt cancellation and aid to sweeten the pill, so to speak, So Egypt will be faced with a very difficult choice. Will Sisi be, as smart as previous leaders, or will he give in? What do you think is going to happen? Because I heard Sameh Shukri, Egypt's Minister of Foreign Affairs, was in Washington, and he has said the same thing. He has said that we will not allow Palestinians to come into the Sinai Peninsula.
Let me say that
Ambassador Al-Hajja, can you hear me?
Yes, now let me say that was at the beginning of the war, that the American were pushing, not only, and all the European who has visited Egypt at that time, right? From Germany, from Italy, from many countries, they were pushing for that, because they have got that message from Netanyahu himself, right? But the Egyptian knew very well that if a new Nakba has happened, the Palestinian problem will be mainly finished. Our power is to be in our land. And as a Palestinian, we took a decision. Whatever has happened, we had two mistakes in our life, one 1948 and the other one 1967. What kind of massacre it could commit it against the Palestinian people, we are not leaving our home, right? We will live and die in our home. And I would like to thank Egypt for their attitude that they are not allowing, they are not opening the border openly, right, to give Netanyahu what he is planning.
I see. That's a very good thing. Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, and what about the West Bank? So King Abdullah has been formed, and Sisi has been equally tough. So Mr. Netanyahu has said last night that he doesn't want the mistakes of the Oslo Accords to be repeated. So where does that leave the Palestinians? You don't leave, you get bombed, you get killed. This is you've got your back to the wall
here. Not only Netanyahu, also Minister of Communication yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He said, we live here. This is our country. The historical state is our ancestors. There will be no Palestinian state here. We will never allow another state to be established between Jordan and the sea. It's not only Netanyahu, it is the same attitudes of the National Security Minister, Mr. Ben Ghafir. It is same of the Financial Minister, Mr. Smotrich, right? So this extreme government, for them, the good Palestinian is the dead Palestinian, right? So if they can kill the Palestinian people, they will do. If they can evacuate all the Palestinian people from the land of Palestine to anywhere, even the Arabs in 1948, right? If they can take them out and make it a pure Jewish state, they will do.
That's tragic. Ambassador Ahmed, if I can just come back to you, on the UN's role, where the General Assembly has now passed sort of it can't be imposed, saying that the ceasefire should be in place. And the UN Secretary General has also talked about how the UN's role is being undermined. Israel's been attacking UNRWA, UNRWA schools, hospitals, and it's cancelled the residential permit of the UN representative in Jerusalem because she criticized the killing and arresting of Palestinian West Bank. So international organizations don't seem to have the power to force Israel into doing what should be done. What do you think that is one issue that the world should take notice of? And the other one is a role played by Qatar. At the Doha Forum, Qatar pushed for a truce. But it's been asked, it wanted to be the mediator, but now that mediator role is also being co-opted, as you have written in a recent piece, by the UAE, where there are meetings of Hamas taking place in Abu Dhabi.
The UN can only be as effective as its members would wish it to be. We are aware that today the divide in the United Nations reflects the political divide that we have, particularly at the highest great power level. Obviously, the Security Council, as a result, is totally paralyzed. International opinion is reflected largely in the General Assembly, and you have seen that 153 members have supported a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire. You must have seen that there are only 10 countries, most of them are unknown other than the US. There's just Austria and Hungary, and the others are, some islands in the Pacific. Only those opposed it. It's extraordinary. And even among those who abstained, you have the United Kingdom, etc. So international opinion is very clearly expressed in the resolution of the General Assembly. The fact that it does not have any effective authority is neither here nor there, because the institutions, the countries concerned, don't give it that authority. That is why all authority, political authority, is reposed in the Security Council. And that is where we are. Institutions, UN agencies on the ground can only be as effective as the host country will allow them to be. And you know that the Israelis have been actively hostile to the United Nations and to all its agencies consistently, because they tend not to take the extremist posture that the Israelis have been espousing for all this period. I want to share with you an insight that has been agitating me. Very with deep respect, I must point out that Israel is replicating in its treatment of the Palestinians almost everything that was done to the Jewish people by the Nazis. The Nazis had an ethnic divide, identified the Jews as separate people, though they had lived in Europe for several centuries, in fact, 2 millennia. They were identified as separate. They were made to live in a ghetto. They were denied political rights.
Oh.
They were denied rights for professional capacity. They were also periodically killed in large numbers. And they were very frequently pushed into certain ghettos. Exactly that is happening. The Palestinians are ethnically separated. They are denied equal rights. Even those who are citizens of Israel are denied equal rights. The rest have, of course, lived under occupation. So they are denied legal rights. They are not allowed to practice their occupation freely. They are constantly deprived of their life and property. They are frequently depopulated. The areas that they live traditionally for several centuries is being taken away from them. Look at the settler movement. A few years ago, about 30 years ago, there were hardly any settlers in the West Bank. And then you see the steady movement of settlers. In the 1990s, there were 170,000, and now they are over 500,000, perhaps 700,000. You can't do away with it. And then the murder, the genocide. This is this is what was done to the Jewish people by the Nazis. And yet, this is exactly the policies that the Israelis are now using against the Palestinians. If I was not, I would sometimes wonder whether the Nazis learned from whether the Israelis learned from the Nazis such all these horrific policies that they are implementing right in front of our eyes with total impunity. Do you recall that when the Nazis had initiated their pogrom, their violence against the Jewish people, most of the international community remained silent.
Yes,
and
even
when
at
at
that
the
time.
end of the Second World War, most of the Western countries said, oops, we didn't know that 6 million Jews were killed. Today you know, and you are still doing nothing about it.
Yeah, if I can just go to a point that was made in, it's just now being widely commented on, which is Bibi Netanyahu's 55-minute call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who made a very surprisingly visit, short visit, though it was, to both Abu Dhabi and Riyadh. It almost looks as if there is a shift in the power dynamics. The US becoming more and more isolated because of its stand on not speaking out openly on the Palestinian genocide almost, and Putin's Russia, and standing up to Netanyahu and saying that this won't do. Do you think that there is a revival of Russian might, shall we say, in the Gulf?
It's almost certain, Nina, that there is obviously a major change in world order. There is no doubt about it. It has been in the offing for several years, but I think there is a very great clarity. The Ukraine war on the one hand and the Gaza war on the other, you could say, are two clear developments indicating a new world order is in the offing. The Ukraine war indicates to me an attempt by the Americans to mobilize Western support against Russia and to debilitate Russia so that the American hegemony remains undiluted. As far as the Gaza war is concerned, the United States, instead of providing global leadership, has remained totally committed to Israel. On the other hand, what else is happening? They have completely ignored. Russia and China have built up a very solid relationship. They have reached out very strongly to the region, to West Asia, are now engaging strongly with the major countries of the region, in Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. President Putin's visit has to be seen in this context. And I would argue to you that he has very clearly conveyed that A, he is going to be in power for a fairly long time, certainly through this decade. So there will be continuity in Russian policy. Number two, that Russia is signaling a very significant presence in the region alongside China. There is no competition with China. I would say to you that my own understanding of their relationship is that there is perfect coordination between the two. They complement each other, and being together, they are very strong and very influential. Israel no longer fits into this scenario because Israel has opted entirely to be part of the American or Western camp. It has always been there. There was never an indication that Israel would be asserting strategic autonomy. And now the beleaguered Netanyahu is even more dependent on the American, as you have seen. From day one, the Israeli army could not fight for one day. From the second day, American forces, Air Force aircraft started shipping equipment. Is this a country which had said to us that we are the world's greatest army, one of the world's greatest army? They can't fight for a day without American support. So yes, as far as Israel is concerned, I'm not sure they're going to give up their affiliation with the Western camp. So what you are looking at in the emerging world order, there will be a Western camp of which European Union for now, NATO countries in general, and Israel will be a part. And you will have an alternative scenario emerging right in front of our eyes, which will reflect the aspirations of countries that are asserting strategic autonomy, independence of action, and a desire to pursue their own interests beyond the diktat of Washington, D.C.
That's very interesting. Ambassador Al-Hajja, if I could come back to you, now that the Hezbollah has also started attacking from Lebanon, and there is the U.S. naval forces are there in large numbers. You have 2 aircraft carriers, and they're talking about setting up a naval task force. Do you see the war widening? Because I mean, the last bombing that Israel did a couple of days ago was just 70 kilometers from Damascus, the capital of Syria. So you have that, and then you have a French frigate, which apparently has shot down drones launched by the Houthis in the Red Sea. Do you believe that there could be a wider war coming, or will that not happen? Because now a lot of Arab diplomats have been come and visited the Rafah crossing as well. Do you think they're trying to control it, or do you think it will blow up?
I think, let me say, I hope it's not widening, and hope that this war stop as soon as possible, and we get ceasefire as soon as possible in Gaza. Otherwise, I think it won't be only between Hezbollah or Houthis and the Palestinian, if it's in West Bank or in if it's in Gaza or West Bank, right? So we don't know exactly with this extreme government what they might do, right? Because I think this war is Netanyahu's war.
Oh, and that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, it is Netanyahu's war, because Netanyahu, I think he considered that his political future, if this war, if he failed with this war, his political future will finish. So he will do everything to keep himself in his position. Also, you know that he might go to court for corruptions also. So we don't know what is the plan of the Israeli government, and what is the real pressure from the United States at Israel to do something, especially will go at the end to the ceasefire. Because let me say that people who vote at the General Assembly against the ceasefire, they are in the wrong side of the history, right? And I think with all that civilian killed in Gaza Strip, the real pressure from the United States and all other countries, not only the United States, at Israel to stop their killing, because as my teacher said, that it is, let me say that Hitler is jealous of Netanyahu because he could not do what Netanyahu is doing, right? It is really, I have mentioned that before, right? In other interviews that
he is the Hitler of the 21st century.
That's it. That's it. And I have mentioned that Gaza is also Leningrad and the Nazis who are bombing Gaza, right? Let me say
it's basically the ethnic cleansing that is going on of Gaza.
It is. Yes, it is. It is.
And the West Bank? Do you include the West Bank too?
Sure. Sure. I mean, if you follow what they are doing, they are moving from city to another city every night, every day. In West Bank, they are killing and detaining people in West Bank, right? They are making their 645 military checkpoints, poisoning the life of the Palestinian people. It's in the roads of West Bank, right?
Yeah, I saw the checkpoints when I was in Ramallah.
Yes, I mean, they are poisoning the life of the Palestinian people in West Bank. Their plan, they want those people, and there is another also video for Netanyahu himself talking about that we will make life like a hell till they leave the country, right? So it's not a
Does the Palestinian Authority, Ambassador Al-Hajja, has it reached out to, people who matter? I mean, in the sense, if and when the Gaza, ceasefire, a second ceasefire comes through, are they talking to Qatar? Are they talking to Cairo? Are they talking to Amman?
Yeah, I think they are talking with all countries, including the European, right? But we are not going, to control Gaza on the tank, on the Israelis' tank, as an example. But let me say that even the Palestinian Authority for Netanyahu is not accepted, right? Because he said that Hamas is...
He won't work with the Palestinian Authority, is what he has said on the record.
Yeah, he said won't be Hamasistan or Fathistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Netanyahu himself. So Fathistan means the Palestinian Authority, right? And he said also, both of them want to kill us. One now and the other is slowly. This what Netanyahu is thinking.
So no Fathistan, no Gazastan. Then what is the alternative?
Hamasistan.
Hamasistan. So what is the alternative? What does he want?
The alternative is to evacuate people. The alternative is to keep Israel without Palestinian people. This is their plan. This is what you have mentioned with Hosni Mubarak, and this is what King Abdullah II felt of their plan, or he has information, when he said it's a red line, that means he has information. And let me say that for tens of years, the Jordanian army did not go to the borders with Israel. A month ago, lots of troops of the Jordanian army went to the borders. That means they
were finally on the border.
Yes. So
that is very interesting, Ambassador. So basically, the Jordanians are worried then. They are alarmed just as much as Egypt is.
Both of them are worried, Egypt and Jordan, right? And it has been discussed. Because of that, also, we have heard from the American, they are against, evacuating people, Palestinian people from their land or occupied another, there was a plan to occupy north of Gaza, right? Or to make buffer zone, as they have mentioned.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So we hope the American will make that really pressure, right? Otherwise, there is no stability in the future in the area.
So my last question, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, in 2024, what can we expect to see as the new year dawns? Are we going to see a new Palestine initiative, or will we see new leaders come to the fore? You've talked about other voices like Mustafa Barghouti and Mohammed Dalan. Is that even a possibility that Israel will be forced to deal with new people, especially as Iran, and Qatar and the UAE seem to be talking about a new formula?
The first point to be noted is Israel has no strategy for Gaza, has no clue as to what to do after there is a ceasefire. They're clueless. They talk in absolute terms about certain messianic visions where millions of people, how many Palestinians lived in the West Bank? 3.7 million. How many Palestinians live in Gaza? 2.3 million. You're talking about over 6 million people living in these two enclaves. You can't depopulate overnight. That's not going to happen. So the whole problem is that in Israel, the domination is of the messianic element, the extreme right wing, both of them either religious right wing or the ultra-nationalist. They have a messianic view of this land. They truly believe that God in the Old Testament provided this land for the exclusive use of the Jewish people. This is their view. This is the messianic view. And I argue sometimes flippantly, and I said, is God a landlord? That he dispenses, and that the Old Testament is a lease deed, which you sign and say, oh, this is my land. You can't, 2,000 years ago, the Jews, in a set of circumstances, went into the diaspora. They were sent by the Romans. They were defeated in battle, and they were sent by the Romans. The Palestinian people lived there for 2,000 years. And suddenly you come back from Europe after the Holocaust, and then you say, this is my land. Because in the Old Testament, God has said, this is my land. So this is nonsense.
That's true. This
is the problem. Now, you don't have statesmanship. You don't have, as of now, a capacity in Israel, the political capacity in Israel to think new thoughts. There is a young generation. It has still to find its shape. It has to find its character.
What about the young generation of the Palestinians? Do they want a new leadership?
You see now, look at the Palestinians. Don't you see a pattern in Israeli approach? When 5,000 children are killed, is that not the decimation of the next generation?
That's right. They're wiping out a new generation.
So what you are doing is, the people who survive are bitter, angry, they're enraged. Have you seen the number of women who have been killed?
Yeah.
7,000 women and 5,000 children. This is the kind of this systematic annihilation of a people, not only today, of the future generation as well. Please remember, women and children, specially targeted. Now, this is where you find that you will find the Palestinian, next, you ask me, next generation, what do they have to look forward to? When you and I celebrate the new year, what will they celebrate? They celebrate nothing. All their most wretched homes have been destroyed, demolished. You see their pictures every day, and we are not moved. Now, unless there is external pressure, there will be no change. This kind of wild theories of madmen, of we will send them to Jordan, send them to Sinai, as if you can send people away. This is what the Nazis tried with the Jews. Send people in large numbers to concentration camps and kill them in the concentration camp. That is not going to happen today. That is a long way. I'm not saying the international community has shown, but there is, I would say to you that what I'm impressed with is the next generation in Western countries. Countries of the global South totally support the Palestinian people.
They do.
We don't need any re-education. You know where the re-education has occurred? In Western countries. Yes, there is a hard right wing, but the young people in the West, total support for Palestine. This is what has alarmed Israel and alarmed the right wing. And that is why they are fighting back with misinformation about mistreatment of women, etc. Have you seen there was this Israeli canard of mistreatment of women by Hamas. Have you seen how they have mistreated women? How many hundreds of women have been imprisoned and subjected to extraordinary abuse and violence? How many children have been, you know why? Because they want information relating to Hamas leaders. How much torture and abuse must these women and children have been subjected to? So I think your question is well taken. I don't see anything new happening in the so-called new year. It will be a very dark year for Palestinian people and for all those who believe that there should be fairness and rights and humanitarian concerns in the world. That has been totally missing, and I'm not sure it will overnight emerge. Can it emerge over a period of time? And I'll just take 1 minute. Can it emerge over a period of time? I am confident. I have said in the past, and I'll say it again, that like Martin Luther King, I also have a dream. And my dream is this, very simple, that this land belongs to both the Palestinian and the Jew. It is their land. Their ancestors lived there. And I believe that that is where, once the Israeli has evolved in his thinking and done away with this rubbish from the Messianic view, he will recognize the Palestinian as his foster brother. If you say that we are children of Abraham, let us see that in a united land, doesn't matter what name you give it, but give equal rights to these people, equal space for each other. They will enrich each other and make that land a very grand space for which we will all be proud.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ahmed. That was very, very beautifully put. Ambassador Al-Haija, I give you the concluding remarks. Can you tell us what you think 2024 will bring?
Let me add to the next generation, just one sentence, that most of Hamas fighters now are orphaned from the second intifada, which it means from 2000 to 2003, right? So they plant hatred, right? Hate with the new generation. We don't know after 20 years what will happen if the Israelis continue with this strategy. Hope 24 will bring us peace. We hope that the international community after this war will interfere in this matter and make real pressure for a peaceful solution to establish the state of Palestine on the land of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital and live with the Israelis side by side as neighbors. Otherwise, another war, it must be much worse than this war, will happen.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Al-Haija, for taking part in the show. Thank you, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. Please watch the Global Express by clicking on the New Indian Express website and clicking on the Global Express icon. Please retweet and share it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nina.
Thanks a lot.